today's video, we're going to model out a popular trackpad device that you've seen in some stores. But first, let's go ahead and clear our scene. I want to come in and I want to bring in a cylinder mesh primitive. And right now at 32, it's a little dense. I don't need that much. So let's crank this down to about 16. Go into edit mode and I want to scale it down. And I want to elongate it a little bit on the y-axis here. This is going to be the battery compartment. Now what I did was I came in here, I selected a face and I extruded it out. I'm going to grab this face here and then I'm just going to move it down like this to get the basic shape. Now it's a little short, so I'm going to have to drag it out a little bit more. And I'm going to need to rotate this face and then scale it down on the Y normal axis, just so it looks right. And there's going to be some finessing, so give me a little bit and you'll see how I kind of finesse the shape a little bit so it looks normal. And what I want to do is I want to go back in here in the edge select mode and I want to pull this edge up so we don't have that divot there. So I'm going to X-ray mode so I can see what I'm doing. And just also slightly bring this up. Just make it a little bit flatter right there, so that when we run sub D on this thing, it'll look right. Now I'm still not happy with the front of this, so I'm grabbing that edge down there and just kind of scaling it down. And if it tapers down there a little bit, I'm okay with that. But as you see, I bring it out a little bit more. And it's still a little short, so I went back in and just dragged that face out and elongated it a little bit more. So now what I want to do is I want to grab these corner points right here. And I want these to be rounded off. So the best way to do that is to bevel them. Right now I have a chamfer, but then I put a level 2 bevel on here. And then what I want to do is go into vert mode and tie off the geometry so it's all quads. So I'm going to select that vert, and I'm going to hit J to join them. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Join them. And now we need to tie these off. So what I'm going to do this is I'm just going to bring in a loop cut. And I'm going to bevel the loop cut. I'm going to line it up as best I can where those verts are. And then it's just less work. I can just tie off the 2 verts from there on each side. So select J and then do the same thing. If it's a little off, it's not a big deal. At least you have the correct topology. You can move that vert by hit double G and it'll move it along that edge, but not a big deal. But just, just for the sake of showing you, for example, I'm going to show you how I do it there. And so far, this is looking pretty good. Now, if we look in the center here, we have a vertices that kind of goes up and makes a big N-gon right here. But the way I handle that is I select the one on the bottom and then select the one at the top. And then I'll hit J to join those 2 vertices together. And Blender will fill in the blanks, if you will. So now we're good with that. But we don't have a whole lot of geometry here. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in here. I'm going to select these faces. And I just want to get them selected for now. Oh, I just missed some. So let's do these here on the top. Join these 2 as well. Okay. I almost missed those. So go ahead and select these faces. This is going to be the glass portion of the trackpad that we're going to use, that the user interacts with. I just wanted to keep that selection. Now what I want to do here, go on the side where the battery compartment is, and I want to make these 2 areas, one of which is where the batteries go into the side of it. So I'm going to use loop tools and make a circle out of that selection. And I want to do an inset because I want it to look like it is screwed in there. So put a little gap in there, and inset's going to help us do a little trickery there to make that look like that. So I'm going to select these faces around that inset. Or at least let's try that again. Grab all these guys here, and then I want to extrude those inward. like that. And then just to tighten this up for sub D, I'm going to come in here and edge mode, and I'm going to grab these sharp edges here, and then I'm going to run tight little bevels on them. So when we run that sub D, it'll keep that shape. And if you notice, right now I'm running a 0.5 bevel, but let's crank that up to 1. That's going to give it a sharp edge. It's not going to have any rounding, in other words. And I think that's going to look pretty good. But I'm not quite done, because this thing has like a screw, like a flathead screw design on it, where you take a coin or a screwdriver to get the battery compartment out, which I think for that particular company that made this device, that was a terrible design, because a lot of people had issues with that. When batteries stayed in there too long and they got corroded, you couldn't unscrew that thing. But we're gonna model it out. So I'm doing a grid fill. I'm gonna straighten this up, because I'm gonna use this grid fill here to kind of help make that shape for that flathead piece to go in there. So what I want to do is I want to grab these edges right here at the top, and my goal is to get these to where they're horizontal. They're all flat. So I'm gonna use a scale. I'm gonna scale them on the Z-axis. Set it to 0, and I'm going to do these, make these vertical. Do the same trick, but with X. Grab these two verts, scale on X, set it to 0. And now I want to grab these here at the bottom and do something similar. Now the trick is to rotate this to where it's fairly straight, and then I can manipulate where it's located, so I can use the G to move the selection down on the X-axis. And notice I'm in orthographic mode, which you need to be in, or else this is not going to work out very well for you if you try it. So now I want to go back in here and select all of these faces. It looks fairly centered. If it's not perfectly centered, I don't really mind too much. So I'm going to extrude these inward, and this is essentially going to be that shape where your coin would fit in, or your screwdriver would fit in to unscrew this little cap. So now I want to go into edge selection mode, select these sharp edges here, and just like before, I want to grab these and I want to put little tight bevels on them for sub D. Grab the ones on the inside as well, for the exact same reason. All right. So now we got that one side done. And the only thing I really need to do on the other side is essentially the same thing without the little screw shape. So what I'm doing now is coming in and I'm adding in some loop cuts to add in more geometry into this model, so we just don't have all these just long faces hanging out. And this is so far looking pretty good. I mean, we're almost done with this model, but there's a few little bit more details I want to add to it that you're probably not going to notice, you know, the way we're going to render it, but at least I'll know it's there. And if we're going to model this device out, then let's go ahead and add a little bit more detail in it. So I'm going to grab all these faces here at the bottom, minus the ones that are not selected. And the way this device looks, there's like a little platform below it that's plastic. And essentially what we're going to do is I'm going to grab these faces, I'm going to extrude on Z to bring it down a little bit, and then I'm going to scale it in just a hair. Just so when I run sub D on it, it'll nicely smooth that out down there. I mean, it's really subtle. So now that I've done that, I want to go ahead and select these edges that I want to be a little bit sharper in terms of detail. And let's run these little tight bevels on these. Now, yeah, that looks pretty good. So let's run a larger bevel here, and keep in mind we just extruded, so I want to make sure that my normals are right, and it looks like this bevel looks a little weird, so let's go ahead and select everything and recalculate normals. Now let's try it again and let's see if this bevel looks, yeah, so the bevel looks a little bit better now. So anytime you guys have an issue with that and your bevel selection doesn't look right, after doing some sort of extrusion work, make sure just to select everything in edit mode and recalculate your normals by hitting Shift N. So one thing I need to do now, bottom ortho, is I want to add 2 little circular feet at the front of this thing. So I'm going to select a grid of faces and I want to scale it down on Y because that's the orientation I'm in. And then I'm going to use loop tools and make a circle. Then I want to inset said circle just a little bit. And I'm going to duplicate the same thing over here. Now there's a couple ways I could have done this to make sure that was absolutely identical. I could have run symmetrize, which would have copied that geometry over to the side. That probably would have been the best way, where we didn't have to use a mirror modifier because of the battery compartment's not the same on either side. But I just eyeballed it and I think we still got there. So that's the other way of doing it. So I'm going to extrude these down and I want to scale these in just a little bit on individual centers so it wouldn't have scaled them in together. And for me, I think this will work. Yeah, that'll work. Sub D will handle that nice. It'll be nice and rounded. Nice little subtle feet up under there. All right. I'm just looking it over. So let's go ahead and tackle this other side of this battery compartment real quick. This is where the power button would normally be when you want to shut the thing off. So I'm going to grab this shape. I'm going to inset it in just a bit. I'm going to turn it into a circle with loop tools. And notice it's a little bit off center. So let's go to ortho here and let's take a look at it. So all I need to really do is just to drag it over and get it where it's roughly centered in that shape. Now I want to inset it again. Well, I rotated it a little bit just to see if I can straighten it up just a little bit nicer, but didn't really matter. So let's inset it again. And I'm going to grab those faces in the middle of that inset and I'm going to do the same trick as I did on the other side to make it look like where it's screwed in or cut out from the other side. So we're selecting these faces and we're going to extrude these faces inward. It's going to give it that look that this is a separate piece. It's going to add a little bit of depth, a little bit of realism to our model. And of course, we want to go here and select these edges, which are these sharp edges are going to be, and we want to put little bevels on them so that sub D doesn't have an effect on them. And what I did was I just left the center of that a big N-gon because it's flat, doesn't matter, instead of a grid fill. You could have used a grid fill, that would have been the more proper way to handle it, but in this case, I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot. So now I'm going to grab some faces down here because I'm going to bring the little feet pad of the back of the battery compartment. I'm going to scale these in with the inset a little bit. And then I'm going to resize them because I don't need my feet pads to be that wide or that thick. Let's bring them in quite a bit here. And then I'm going to extrude these down as well. And if you notice that shape is not flat, it's got like it comes up to a point. I want that point because sub D is going to smooth it out. They're going to be nice and rounded on the bottom. Okay, so I'm running level 3 sub D on this and look at what we have thus far. It's looking pretty good. So I'll save my file out. So now let's go back into face select mode and let's select some faces up here at the top because I want to use these faces to make the glass surface of the trackpad. So I make the selection. I'm going to Shift D it. Then I'm going to hit P and I'm going to separate this out as its own selection. What this is going to do is it's going to make a new mesh. And I'm going to bring it up just a little bit because I want to give it some thickness. I'm going to extrude this down. This is how I'm going to give it thickness. You could use solidify modifier as well. For me, this was just quicker. And I'm going to recalculate normals because I did an extrusion. And I just want to seat this back kind of into place. I'm going to let it sit up above it just a hair, so when we render this, you'll be able to see it. It looks more real. So while I'm in here in the outliner, let me give these items some names so we know what we're dealing with, because we're going to have to do some parenting here. So I'm put these in a collection as well. So now we've got those in their own collection. Let's go ahead and select these guys and parent the glass to the main model. And that is now done. And now I can turn sub D back on. It's a pretty good looking model. One thing I do want to add a cut in here. There we go. And then shade smooth everything. And now we're pretty good with it. So now I'm coming back in here to this glass surface. And what I want to do is I want to select all these sharp edges here, and I want to put a tight little bevel on them. Because in our sub D, we don't have that done yet, and it just smooths everything out a little bit too much. What we don't want to do is down here where these nice round bevels are, we don't want to grab that corner there and bevel it off, because it'll give it a hard edge. So we just bevel these, real tight little bevel, like that, because it's going to be a nice little glass surface. And that looks pretty good. And then we're going to bring everybody back so we can see it in context with the model. See, if you look real closely, you'll see a little gap in there. And now we turn sub D back on, re-enable it. Now you see how smooth this is. That's looking pretty good. All right, so one thing I want to address while I'm in here is, like, this edge looks a little mushy. So what I'm going to do for the model itself is I'm going here and grab some of these edges around that battery compartment. And instead of beveling these, I'm going to run an edge crease, which, just so you guys know, is non-destructive, and I can change the percentage in which the crease happens. And I'm thinking that's just going to be a good method in terms of handling that look I'm trying to get. Let's do the same thing on this side. I'll grab the same edges as I did on the opposite side. Or I should say, I'll grab their counterparts. And let's run that edge crease on this as well. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That looks pretty good. So I want to do the same thing around the feet, because the feet look a little muddy around that where that should be a crease there. So I'm going to come back in here in bottom ortho, and I just want to grab all these edges that go around the bottom here. And I want to do the same for this one as well. So we put a nice little crease right there. So the model looks good. We're done with this model. So now we're getting ready to move on to putting some materials on it so we can actually make it look like the trackpad. All right, so this is the second part of the video where we're going to actually start bringing in some materials. First thing I want to do is bring in a plane. I want to scale it up to 7 times the size of the original. I want to run a subdivision on it a number of times just to give it a lot of geometry in here, because we're going to put in a material that is a little bit more photorealistic. And just to save us some time, I'm going into my add-on Blender kit, and I'm doing a search for floor tiles, and there's a particular blue one I thought looked pretty good with this model, so I'm going to bring it in, And because we divided that floor up, notice we have good displacement. So in other words, the tile looks like it's raised up off the floor a little bit. Looks like it has depth. So I'm happy with that. So now I bring in my camera into my view. I'm just kind of moving things around. I'm not married to this composition yet because we're probably going to change it. And if you notice, the trackpad itself does not have any materials on it yet. So I'm just kind of going in here and doing the pass per toe and everything else. All right, so now let's go in here, and the little trick I like to use is I go into view and camera to view, and then that way I can just move the scene around. The camera kind of stays in place, and it allows me to just kind of compose a shot a little bit differently than moving a bunch of stuff around. And what I want to do is just select my model of the trackpad. I'm going to come in here, create a new material. I'm going to call it material.body. You can name it whatever. I'm going to crank up the metallic all the way up. I'm going to play with the roughness here just to kind of mimic the look of that aluminum body that trackpad has. And I'm going to give it a little bit of coating on it, a little bit of clear coat, because it has a slight amount of little sheen to it. Well, more clear coat than sheen, to be specific. Now I'm going to bring my view in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing, because I'm not 20 years old anymore, and even though I still can see good, I'm just not quite the same as I used to. So one thing I did was I brought all the lights out of the scene. I deleted them all. So I'm going to come in here manually and start bringing area lights in, so I can light the scene just like I want to. You can play this video back and mimic my lighting setup if you're following along and like to try it, or you can come up with something that's, you know, something that you can call your own. I know a lot of you guys have seen my videos in the past when I've used lights. I just start dragging lights into the scene pretty quickly. It's an add-on called Light Wrangler by Leonard Altman. Highly recommended if you do a lot of stuff with lighting. It's just easy. I mean, literally you can do the same thing with Vanilla Blender, and even the latest update to Blender makes this a lot easier. Some of the same features that were in Light Wrangler are built into Blender in the lighting section now. But I just find it very, very quick. So that's why I use the plugin, because it just makes my work a lot faster. But I don't always use it for everything. All right, so now I'm going in, I'm gonna select that glass top, and I have my own customized shader that I want to use for this. And if you want a copy of that shader, you can get it on Blender Kit. It's actually in the shaders. If you look for LM3 Official, you should find it. There are two. There's one that's for Eevee and one for Cycles I made. They're very realistic looking glass shaders. So you'll see I'm going to my asset library. I'm dragging it down right on top of that glass surface. And now I want to bring the color of my aluminum down just a hair. So now I don't need this anymore, so I'm just going to move that out of the view. And now to tackle these buttons. So keep in mind, this is all part of one mesh. So, but what I want to do is I want to come back in here in solid view. I'm going to go to face edit mode. And I want to start selecting some geometry right here in the middle. And then I'm going to control plus it until I grab enough of it to where that's what I want the color to be applied to. Then in the materials panel, I can come over here, hit the plus, create a slot for a new material. I'll hit new, create a new material, give it a name. I think I'll call it like buttons or something, material.buttons, and then hit assign, and then that's going to assign it to my selection. So now I can come back out and then just start playing with the material, and it's only going to affect that selection. So now what I want to do is I want to bring in a shader panel over here, and I'm going to do my own little shader for this. Nothing fancy. I'm just going to bring in a glossy BSDF and a diffuse BSDF, and then I'm going to merge them together with a mixed shader node. Now you'll see me do this pretty quickly because I'm using Node Wrangler. Like I said, for me, it's all about time. I don't want to take forever to do a lot of this stuff. So I work pretty fast. And I'm slowing down a lot of this for my tutorials because I mean, and I'm sure most content creators on YouTube and other places that do these videos, I'm sure most of us slow down. This is not my normal work speed. It's much slower because it'd be hard for people to keep up. I know some things I say it's hard for me to keep up, especially if I hadn't done it before. So anyway, that aside, gonna go on the other side and do the same thing and apply the same material, that button material. So it's gonna look the same on both sides. The only difference is one's got a slot in it for a screw. Now, I could have put the binary switch icon on here, but I just didn't feel like doing it. So that's why we're not doing it. I do want an area light to pop off the top of that glass just to give you a sense that that's a glass top. So I'm coming back in my camera view and let me manipulate this light so I can really see it. Yeah, it's just a little bit of, there we go. That's kind of what I was looking for. But if you notice, we got that hard light cast on the floor. So this is a good opportunity to use light linking to keep that light from bouncing off the floor so harshly, because it kind of throws everything off. So I'm gonna go up here to light linking, hit new, and then I'm gonna drag that plane, excuse me, that glass down there, and I only want my light, that particular light to apply to the glass surface, which it does. It gives us that nice pop in the glass, and now you don't see it blasting out on the ground plane down there now. So that's a good use case for light linking. And I'm going in here and adding a little feathering, soften the edges of that light a little bit. Gives it almost like a satin look, a nice soft diffuse look. And you guys, if you've seen enough of my videos, you see I like to screw with the lights for a while, so just bear with me. There's a little bit of method to that madness of screwing with these lights. All right, so now I'm going back in here, select the body of the model, and then what I want to do here is I want to come in here and I want to select that bottom piece that we had extruded. This piece on the real device is a piece of white plastic. So I'm going to do my Control Plus trick, and I'm going to select all this, and I want to look here on the side because I want to make sure that selection goes up to the side of that as well. And I'm going to go back into the shader panel. I'm going to do a new slot, new material. I'm going to call this one material.bottom. Why? Just because it's on the bottom. There's no other particular reason why I named it that. And I'm going to go to material preview because I actually want to see what this looks like. So keep in mind the rest of this thing is metal. This right here is going to be like a plastic. And I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know what? Let me do this differently. So let me go in here and get rid of the principal. I want to bring in a glossy. I want to bring in a diffuse. And then here's where we're going to glue them together using a mix shader node. You'll see how Node Wrangler makes this just less clicking. It's just, it shaves off seconds, and those seconds add up throughout the workflow of you making something. So now I'm going to play with the roughness on the glossy just to make it more of a shiny plastic, which you can't really tell in look dev mode that much, but you can kind of see it. I could change the HDRI that's applied to it so you can see a little bit better, but when we go into cycles, it'll just, trust me, it'll look right. Now with the camera view we have, we won't even see the bottom, but if you were to ever make this model and use this model on something else, like a ad or something, like you'd be able to see it. So same kind of deal here. I'm going to select all of these faces and I'm going to Control Plus. And if you go too far, you can do a Control Minus and it takes you back. I want to bring it all the way up to where we have that crease. New slot, new material. I'm going to call this a material.feet. And I'm going to assign it to that selection. And now we can get out of here. Actually, let me give it like a grayish blue color. And I'm just going to play with the roughness a little bit. And the sheen. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other foot. And then I can just go down here and then hit material and assign. And boom, we're done. Now we have the 2 feet in the back where the battery compartment is. You're going to see I'm going to literally do the same thing. So I'm reinforcing some things for you guys on this video. Number 1 is these selections and how to assign multiple materials to a selection, and how to start out with a small selection and using control plus, control minus to make the selection grow or to shrink. These are some of the techniques in this video that I want you guys to take away from. All right, so now we can go back to cycles. And let's save my file out. And I want to take all these area lights. I'm going to move them into their own collection called lights. And of course, you guys know by now, if you watch enough of my videos, I love to save my files. So I do quite a bit of that. All right. I mean, for the most part, guys, we're done. Let's just move this out of the way. And there it is. What we want to do is scale this up, and let's do a quick render. And let's see what we get. Great job, guys. If you like this content, please do me a favor by liking and subscribing to the channel and the video, and click that bell for notifications for when I launch new videos. I normally do like 1 or 2 videos a week, but I'm trying to find time to ramp it up as I've promised in the past. So we'll see. But anyway, great job on this one, guys. I hope you learned a lot. Hope you had a good one. And I will see you on the next video. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.